for us to isolate or to compartmentalize them. It's just media. I think we have a structural problem in our country where now the evidence of that hate and many other things which are undesirable are manifesting themselves. And we feel that as MDC, the media cannot do this on their own. This is a national problem that we have. And the good thing is, this room is filled with greatness, great men and women, well accomplished in your respective areas of endeavor. And the one thing that I think we don't have in all our greatness is the fact that we have not given so much to our social fabric or maybe to our social political discourse. It is so poisonous, and I think it then affects all the things or all the good things or the desirable things that we so wish. And I can say in good authority that I don't think there's any Zimbabwean who does not want a good Zimbabwe. And once we acknowledge or concede that we hate each other so much that there is no meaningful thing that can come out of any indaba, we are not yet. We as Zimbabweans, not as state actors or members from the opposition, we should be able to have a conversation around the issues that worry us. As I close my submissions, I'll give the one example of the Americans. I know my brother Chris will not probably agree, but let's hold everything constant around the Americans and take this one thing after the Civil War, or rather maybe at the end of the Civil War, the American Civil War. That means they fought against each other. It was a civil war. What did they do? Dialogue. They spoke. They talked about these things. Kindly talk. And I think that's what we need. In Zimbabwe, I believe we are in a state of fighting against each other. As is evident from the report, I'm not going to touch much on it because they've done a perfect job. And I think it's about time that we need a kind of conversation around the problems that we have as a nation. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Thanks for that. I wanted to move to you, Stephen. I think from a litany of challenges that you cited in the 2023 elections were also the conduct of the media. In your view, what was the challenge? Was it a deliberate, exclusion of your party, or was it, what could have been the challenges, and what do you think really needs to be done for us to implement Section 61 of our Constitution, which ensures everyone should have a voice?
Thank you. I was thinking that you followed the pattern from the last presentation, but anyway, I take the opportunity. Someone spoke earlier saying journalism follow the flag, but I would also want to say, besides following the flag, journalism also follows the political environment or the politics of the day. We've seen in the past, during the War of Liberation or during the UTI era, we've seen that the public media, they used to term those who were fighting for independence, the likes of my brother here, terrorists. But they were doing the right thing because they were fighting for independence for the majority. We go to the Mugabe era, post-independence, after the formation of MDC. We saw those fighting for democratic space being termed by the public media puppets of the West. Now we have Triple C under Emerson Mnangagwa's administration. We are also being termed puppets of the West. I've gone through this history just to show you how the media sometimes toward the politics of the day. This now leads us to what we call polarization, political polarization. So whatever that is happening in this country, be it in media or any other sector, is a reflection of the politics of the day. We've been talking about the media being paid poorly. Like any other sector, you go to teachers, they are crying. They are incapacitated. You go to the media, journalists are also crying. We are incapacitated. Why? Because our economy has not been performing. We also go to the issues of violations of journalists. Why are our journalists not talking about corruption? Why is it that Al Jazeera can do an investigative, a documentary, yet we have a plethora of media houses here, but they could not go and dig deep with a topical issue of abductions? Why is our media silent? Why have you not tried to go deeper to see if these abductions are real? Because there's another side that is saying, no, the abductions are fake, but with people, with evidence, where we saw our members being abducted. Why is the media kept so silent? This goes back to what I said, the politics of the day. We know we are afraid also, just like any other person in this country. You fear that maybe if they can do this to politicians, we are not in politics. If I try and go and dig deep, maybe they'll also get hold of you. So what I would say in conclusion is that we need to work hand in glove, not as journalists, not as politicians, but as Zimbabweans, because we all want a better Zimbabwe. We all want a better Zimbabwe where journalists' rights are respected. We all want a better Zimbabwe where rights of every citizen, no matter the gender, no matter political affiliation, is respected. I think this is the Zimbabwe that the likes of Mutsvangwa went to war for. A Zimbabwe that respects basic rights of human beings. A Zimbabwe that respects the Constitution. A Zimbabwe that respects freedom of information. A Zimbabwe that respects freedom of expression. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that submission, and yeah, you have in a way spoken to some of the issues around the lack of investigative journalism, fear, and then so forth. The need, indeed, for us to continue conversing. I think let me move to Linda as well. There were issues that were raised from the report in respect of the reflection on women, but beyond that, as a leader of a political party, what are also your reflections on how the media is covering? Is it covering all actors fairly, equally? What do you think is the problem and what do you think needs to be done?
Thank you, Nigel. My views are well known. They will always border around feminist transformation because I lead the feminist transformation political party. And my apologies if I'm going to step on some toes in this room, but I think that we need to be factual, especially in terms of how misogynistic our media is in this country. I'll give an example. Starting from 2018, we had 4 presidential candidates that were women who hardly got any media coverage. And when they did, it was on page 5 or page 6 in a very little corner. We don't have gender responsive editorial policies, and we still view women in certain lenses that actually demean their status in society. We have seen a lot of reporting that stereotypes women politicians, that actually violate Section 17 of the Constitution of this country. We have seen a lot of articles that will ask, is Zimbabwe ready for a woman president? We have seen articles that speak as if women have got no right whatsoever to participate in political activities. We have seen journalists that actually have a bias towards women who want to run for the highest office in the land. Women in Zimbabwe have been victims of biased reporting by most media outlets. Anything to do with women. I'll give an example. My apologies, Mutsvangwa, because I'm going to use you as an example. When Minister Monica Mutsvangwa was put in as the Minister of Information, I read in one newspaper saying, Minister Monica Mutsvangwa, the wife to Christopher Mutsvangwa, has been appointed a minister. It is as if it was her marriage to Mutsvangwa that made her to be appointed to be a minister. I'm saying this because this is the type of reporting we see when journalists are writing in Zimbabwe. When they are writing about women who are not married, the single woman or this one who's got so many baby daddies and whatever, what has that got to do with politics? When Sandra Ndebele wanted to run for council, there was a headline which was talking about her body structure and her gyrating and etc. etc. And I think that is very improper and just to stop. I'll speak about that because a lot of women shy away to speak out, shy away to come on platforms like this to even speak to the media because they are afraid of how you journalists are going to report about what they spoke about. A lot of women will not even give you an interview because they are afraid about how you are going to quote them in courts in describing their bodies or their darkness of Sankeza, like what Hopo said about me. So when we speak about these things, we need to also ensure that we start respecting Section 17 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, because it just does not speak about the state being responsible about issues to do with gender. The media also has got a role to play in ensuring that women get the respect they deserve in this country. But when we see media being at the forefront of only writing the bad stories in courts about women, then we've got a problem. If Linda does something wrong, you'll find that story on page 1. But whenever she does good, you will never see that story on page 1. That has to change. And when we look at the misogynistic nature that I was talking about, there's hardly any fact-checking when it comes to the issues. Zamanga Tora is for social media, nazoga, print media menu, especially online media. And one time, I'll give this as an example. Someone somewhere maybe in a bar wrote that I was caught sleeping with my son's child, with my son's friend. I found that written in almost every online tabloid, but that was fake. It had the propensity to even break up my marriage. But someone was thinking about the mileage they're going to get and the money they're going to get online, at the same time also harming my own personal privacy, harming my own marriage, just because I'm a woman. We have never seen media running around with fake stories about men who they've slept with or have not slept with. But when it comes to women, everyone wants to know who they slept with and who they did not sleep with. I mean, we also deserve equality. We are protected by the Constitution of Zimbabwe. Every person is equal before the law and should enjoy their equality in this country. We also need reporting that is gender responsive and gender sensitive. Access to information in 62.3 speaks about the retraction of incorrect information. I've reported several cases to VMCZ, and when they were ordered to retract certain stories, the retraction will go into a little corner and hardly visible. But when they are making a story out of the particular misinformation, the story will be in bold. So when we're speaking about media ethics and everything else, I don't know how you journalists are doing it, because when it comes to the retraction of issues, that would have been written without doing fact checking. You will go and hide the retractions in a corner, and you want to give us reasons that it will affect our paper. What about the images that you would have destroyed? That does not matter to you, because what is important to you is just selling your paper. All media outlets in Zimbabwe should have gender-responsive editorial policies and employment policies in order to change gender biases, stereotypes, and sexism that permeates in the media newsrooms and media spaces. Media practitioners and institutions must not publish information that is likely to engender hostility or hatred towards persons on ground of their race, gender, tribe, political affiliation, religion, etc., etc. It is very sad that our media has now become the catalyst of polarization and toxicity in this country. You run with a certain narrative just because of a brown envelope that you have been given, at the end of the day also damaging people's reputations. We also need strict laws to protect women in Zimbabwe, like in Botswana. Women, whether in politics, in journalism, or a vendor, is not protected in this country. Anyone can say anything harmful to them, and they know that nothing will happen to them. We've got cyber laws that are not yet operational, and I'm happy Inspector Bonat is here. Data and cybercrime unit to deal with the excessive trolling, cyberbullying, and cyber crimes that are happening on our cyberspaces. Because we've got a lot of false information, misinformation that is happening. When you report some of these cases, they take a very long time because the police themselves are not yet equipped. I've got plenty of cases that I've reported to the police that have not been actioned because they don't know how to go about it yet. So it is important for us to ensure that we also respect people's right to privacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I'm sure the editors are here and have listened to some of your concerns and will respond accordingly. I'll move now to Honorable Minister, who is also the Secretary for Information and Publicity in Zanu PF. I think from the report and from the feedback in Kuboda, apparently the governing party has the lion's share of publicity, the lion's share of those that propagated media, because perhaps from your party on your standpoint, you would be happy with the media.
Thank you very much, moderator. I also want to respect the three panelists. I want to go further and bow to the investigations which have been presented here by your experts. And finally, of course, I'm here because I respect this profession. The fact that you decided to forego another activity today and come here, it means a lot, because somebody has indicated the fourth estate is the lifeblood of democracy. The public has got to be informed, and if there's somebody who can be there to search information, sift it, and then present it to the public in an honest and dispassionate manner, it can only mean that our democracy will thrive, which takes me to the fact that democracy and human rights are what Zanu PF stands for historically. And we had to sacrifice to get democracy and human rights to make it possible for all the people who are here, including the opposition, which is under our constitution, to operate in an open, in a free country. There are people here who are talking about who has always been somehow disparaged in the media. But I want to remind people here that before independence, women had to get a birth certificate. You had to go with a boyfriend, or to go with a fake husband, or to go with your brother or your father to get a certificate. You were minors. But Zanu PF changed all that, and it did it not because they wanted to be charitable to women. It was not an act of charity, but it was because when we fought asymmetrical warfare, when we used our numbers and we tried to organize them to offset the numerical and to offset the technological bias of our enemy, the technological superiority of our enemy. And since women constitute 50% of the population, in a people's war, you can't have half of the population not participating in that war, because you can't win. So it had we had to organize the whole population, including women, to win. So the position of women in Zanu PF is very sacrosanct. We don't see them as second-class citizens, and we are determined to fight all the prejudices, some of them historical cast from tradition, which have militated against the advance of women, but some of them also coming from the colonial order, where women were on the bottom of the ladder in terms of deprivation of access to property. And we have seen what our president is doing, where because of the drag from the past, women cannot get their rightful place in democratic representation. And we are now using affirmative action, presidential executive powers, to see to it that women do get into decision centers. We are very happy because one of the things which Zanu PF did was to organize education for all Zimbabweans. This is a product of the war. It's not a product of Robert Mugabe's president, although he was at the apex of it. The same organization which we used to overcome the enemy, we employed it to organize rural parents to build schools for free in the 1980s. And they were rewarded with a teacher from Harare. There was a race between parents building schools and the little budget from the Ministry of Education supplying teachers. The parents built more schools than teachers could suffice. What do? We had to go back to Havana, tender our former military camps into teacher training centers. We trained 8,000 teachers in Havana, in Cuba, to catch up with parents building schools. And now, Zimbabwe is the most educated. It didn't come from the national budget. In any country which tries to build from the national budget, it will take ages to reach to that. But along the way, we gave more opportunities to the ghetto child. That's why today we are so happy with the advances which are now being done by the ghetto child, so that the happiness index of a country is determined by how far women are represented in decision-making processes. Those with the most women in decision-making process in a country are the ones who are the most happy, who are the happiest on earth, and mostly the Nordic countries, and we want to aspire to that. As we touched, I know I have limited time. We have touched the question of state ownership or state bias of newspapers or publicists. Let me put it this way: the state in Zimbabwe, the state intervention in the press in Zimbabwe is not only the Zimbabwe government with its limited resources, but it is also the states which are inimical, historically inimical to the progress of Zimbabwe. If you find the amount of publicity that Zimbabwe gets from Western newspapers, if you find what the American Voice of America does on the Studio 7, if you find the reporters from BBC, then you get all the daily mavericks. They are all coming from foreign countries. It may not necessarily sometimes be the state. It is not only the state, but it is compounded by international private capital, which is gluttonously greedy about the resources of Zimbabwe. We are just lucky as a people, as a country, as a nation, that in terms of endowment of resources, we feature probably higher than any other country across the board. And this makes people covet our country. You know, we made one of the richest British men in the world rich. Rhodes, he named this country under him. So those vested interests, corporate interests outside of this country, they try to manipulate the press against Zanu PF. So we have to make sure that we also try to inform our people. There's nothing wrong with the Democratic Party, but there's everything wrong with a party which aspires to be democratic, but then is not patriotic. And it freely identifies with the ideology and foreign policy inclinations of a foreign power. If there's one thing which Zanu PF priesthood about, because we know the price of getting to where we are today, it is the prospect of our democracy being abused to serve foreign interests. I want to give you an example. There's an organization called Open Society Institute of Southern Africa. It is owned by George Soros. Open Society Institute champions the ideology of Cecil John Rhodes as the template upon which Zimbabwe should be ruled. That's Mr. George Soros. And I was in the 1990s when this fight started for Zimbabwe. They came trying to recruit me because they were setting up a whole paraphernalia of journalists in Johannesburg to attack Zimbabwe. And because I've always had a hate-love relationship with my governing party, sometimes I want the receiving end from all the people that are talking about. In fact, more often people don't realize, more often things which complain about, I've suffered them much more than some of the journalists who are here. I know, and I can give you examples, but that is not the purpose of this discussion today. But they wanted to recruit me because they thought maybe they could use my independence of thought to become one of their propaganda pushers in Johannesburg, Open Society Institute of Southern Africa. It is one which sponsors a lot of the private press in this country, because George Soros feels that he can be a later day Cecil John Rhodes and get the lithium of Zimbabwe, the gold of Zimbabwe, the chrome of Zimbabwe, the coal of Zimbabwe, the ferrochrome of Zimbabwe. This is what they want. So you cannot overlook capital on a global scale and its covetous its covetous eyes on Zimbabwe's resources. And the way they go and try to affect or sponsor newsrooms, they actually do. The brown envelopes just don't talk of the little which a journalist gets. That's nothing. It is the bigger brown envelopes, the owners of those newspapers, to peddle a certain viewpoint. I want to say that the danger which I find in the discourse generally here is that you get packed into a space and you give him one agenda. There is a certain party in this country, I won't mention its name. All it does is to say we want power. You give them any responsibility which does not identify them with power at State House, they shut their eyes. Because for them, power is what they want to go to State House. They have a purpose to achieve power. To what end, they never define. But if you look at their practice, where the voters have given them power, it's a dismal record. Urban areas are sources of putrid decay, and they've been run by that certain party for 2 decades in all its manifestations, whether it is in the name of my left or it is on the name of my right. the same party. Urban authorities are as much institutions of governance as the state. If you want to show that you're a competent person to go to State House, try to make town house that discharge its role, then the electorate will concede that you're a good person who can run a country. But no, it doesn't happen. All the urban centers is decayed. Why? They think that the town, getting power, the town house is not important, because the only thing which they have fixated is State House. Why State House? because then you can wield total power to serve the interests of foreign powers. That's why they want state house. We wait into elections. They don't acknowledge the elections unless they've won. You know, they go into a tag team, a husband and wife. Their wife wins and the husband loses with a tag team. They say the winning of my wife is fine, but my loss is not fine. But we tag team in the same. You know, what am I alluding to? They send MPs to parliament. They are happy with the outcome. Their man doesn't make it as presidential candidate. Oh, the election is not fair, but it's able to run under the same conditions. So they take a cafeteria approach to politics, and they then sterilize all the politics of this country about one thing: their quest to go to State House. What does it do? We have moved as Zanu because we are Zanu PF. We carry out assignments and discharge and take new ones and discharge. From creating an army to protect Zimbabwe, to independence, we move on to education, to land. We are a party which is constantly looking at what can deliver prosperity to the people of Zimbabwe. But this party, these new parties, they don't look at delivering prosperity to Zimbabwe. They just fixated with the idea of power. Now, what do? They say polarization, because all of you are being made to think that the only thing which matters to this is a struggle between Triple C or MDC and about state power at the apex of governance, which is the National Assembly and the executive. We are doing things as ZANU-PF in the last 5 years, which are transforming this country on a scale which is unprecedented. I was in Victoria Falls last week. I was in Victoria Falls and I was talking to CEOs of this country. All of them are not aware. It was like breaking news to tell them that we are building the largest steel plant on the African continent. It was breaking news. Why? Because it is being done by a Chinese company. If it is not being done by a Western company, it's not a project which they write about. We are doing lithium on a scale which the world has never known. With 6 billionaires doing lithium in Zimbabwe today. So our technology in those areas, in steel and in lithium, will be the best possible available on the market. It does not get covered because it is being done by capital which we have not been used to. Because for you, the idea of capital is American. For us, ZANU-PF capital is no geopolitical color. Capital is the same. So what I want to appeal finally is that you got to have in your mind scope and scale. What ZANU-PF is doing is realizing scope and scale which is unprecedented on the African continent to transform this country. And when we transform this country, we'll get the resources to move you from analog to digital inclusivity, where you can then get the resources, because capital creates capacity. Capital turns the labor into resources, into goods and services, which then make a country prosper. If you don't, that's where you want to position yourself to catch up with what President Mnangagwa is doing to attract world-class capital, combining with the best brains of the African continent, so that we can turn capital into profit on a scale Africa has never done. This will create opportunities for everybody, new towns, new railway lines, new ports. We are building new ports in Mozambique to export steel up to 10 million tons. It's being done now. I'm involved because I'm not talking about something which is being done by anybody else. That's what I've been trying to do because I'm an investment bank. But we get you quoting people who say they are investment bankers and he has never invested even $20 in from his pocket. He is actually looking for a stipend at a function like this. Yet he is positing himself as an investment banker. That's it. You get a publisher who comes there and then he says, we are not being treated fairly because I asked him, have you seen what is being done in Buhera by this company, billionaire company, being done in Manise by this billionaire? No, he says, it's breaking news for me. Breaking news of projects which have been 10 years, which have buildings which have gone up. You see, because of the geopolitical bias. If America does not, if you are told it's a steel plant and there's not written America there, it doesn't exist. If you are told it's a lithium plant and it's written in China, then it doesn't, it doesn't exist. If you are told that there's a bottling company done by the Indians, which has taken the lunch of our traditional bottling company, you say it doesn't exist. Even when Wall Street is written Pepsi Balloon, we need a mindset which makes you and see where we are going and capture those things for society. The last thing is this. There's one party which only looks for power. We've got another party which is puffing all these investments. Now you want to report. Every day you want to report that Chamisa wants to go to State House. We in Zanu PF, we've got so many things. Our president, our with a moon. Like check my reports. Emma projects are big projects. Now you want to be told what reporter in a party which is an indigent party, which is a drone party, which waits for the day we need to go to State House before they can show us what they do. Maybe if you want, you can continue to write about them because it's a zero agenda, one item agenda. But if you want to where Zimbabwe is going on a continental scale, on a global scale, you got to do the projects which are being supported or promoted by Zanu PF. That's what makes a difference, I think.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for those reflections. And we should not just concentrate on politics in our reportage. There is much more insofar as diversity is concerned than just the politics of the day. I'm going to take a very quick round of plenary before we break for tea. It's a quick one so that we can be able to catch up with our time and move the conversations forward. Yes, I note your hand, Joswenika.
Thanks, Comrade Kabila. Mine is actually just a comment. From the contributions that came from the political parties, you can see where the media's problem starts. Because at the end of the day, from the political parties, I did not hear the drive of nation building, national interests, that sort of talk. They were all very partisan. It's all about me and how the news should be written from my point of view. So I think that is where maybe the major problem needs to be fixed, and the media will reflect that fixing when it's done. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for that comment, Anastasia.
Mine is not a comment. I would like Mr. Mutsvangwa to tell the Zimbabweans on why they are blocking certain media houses at certain state functions or party functions. Because most of the journalists that they will be blocking or not allowing to cover certain events, especially the presidential events, they are all accredited by Zimbabwe Media Commission. That is constitutionally in place. So I want to find out I've never had a problem with you when I call you and want to have an interview with you. You answer me well. But I have a problem with the ruling party that is in power, that is not giving equal access to all the journalists in Zimbabwe.
Okay, thanks. Can you note that?
Yeah. So I just wanted to talk about something that I feel, politicians must be politicians and allow journalists to be journalists, right? So for instance, let's just say, for instance, Peter Ndlovu decides to be a political player, right? How would you refer to Peter Ndlovu? You'd say a former footballer, right? Right? So if Sandra Ndebele decides, well, how do you refer to Sandra Ndebele? Apart from what she's known for doing. You understand? Journalism refers to people from what they are known of doing. And you can't take that away from journalism. Right? You can't say that Sandra Ndebele is known for sexual dances on the stage. And she decides to be a politician and people refer as to what she's known, and you blame journalists for doing that. I think it's unfair, and I think it's trying to take the sting out of journalism. Real journalism talks about the real things that people do. And this issue every time, we sit and we have conversations. We hear people say that journalists write bad news about women. But open a newspaper today and tell me which man is being reported on positive. Nelson Chamisa, Morgan Trangirai, open zip, shut mind, all these things. So if you decide to enter into an area where people are reported on, you must understand that these things happen. Look at how the vice president, the acting president of today has been reported on, KCD Mohad. The things that is spoken of about him. He's a man, is he not? So if you don't want people to say bad things about you, don't do them. Journalists will write the things that you do. You must know this. Please, people, do not do bad things and expect journalists to say when you are happy, then they start talking good about you. And people think they have the monopoly of insulting others.
Yeah.
If you insult people and they insult you back, don't look at journalists and say, look at him, he's insulting me. We saw you insulting people yesterday. We must not take sides. Journalism is about not taking sides. We take sides with the truth. If the truth says, like for instance, if someone says it's raining outside and someone says it's not raining, it's not our business to say, he said it's raining, she said it's not raining. No, we go outside and look and see if it's raining. And we then provide the truth about what is happening. So don't make us a center to fight your battles. We are journalists who report the truth. What you do is what you will see in the papers.
All right, thanks. I'm sure it's comments targeted and submissions by Linda.
Thank you very much. I would like to see Honorable Mutsvangwa as I make this comment. I've listened to you in many fora. I'm a Zimbabwean woman born and bred here. But I really find it difficult, and I don't know how the media perceive this. I find it difficult when you refer to Zanu-PF as a savior of this country, as if Zanu-PF is a foreign body to Zimbabwe. Zanu-PF represents our fathers, our grandmothers, our mothers. We are all here as Zimbabweans. And to present Zanu-PF as a separate entity that came from somewhere to save Zimbabwe, I would rather you speak about how Zimbabweans fought this war. Zanu-PF did not fight this war alone. It is a name that was given to the collective that came together to say, let's stop this fight, let's start this fight for our country, for our nation, for everyone, even children that were not born at that time. So I find it very problematic each time you speak, especially Honorable Mutsvangwa. I'm sorry to digress, but it really affects me when you speak as if Zanu-PF is just the people that we see right now. It's everyone in this room. We have Zimbabwean blood running in our bodies. And when you speak, don't speak like you are Zanu-PF is something separate from everyone else. It is Zimbabweans who stood up. We appreciate that. And you are not the only ones. There are people who are no longer even identifying with Zanu-PF today who are part of that structure. So I would like to correct that, and I would like our media also to clarify that Zimbabwean liberation was fought by Zimbabwean children, sons and daughters, who are here. Some of them have decided to form other parties, yes, but they contributed to the war that you fought. And I think it's ethical for you to acknowledge that, always. The fact that you are in Zanu-PF today doesn't mean you'll be in Zanu-PF tomorrow. In the current structure, you might not be. There were people who were in Zanu-PF who are no longer in Zanu-PF yesterday, and you know them. And it's not constant. Tomorrow there could be a totally different Zanu-PF. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Okay, the very last, I don't see any other in it today because we we are really out of time.
Thank you very much. I think I will revert back to a statement that was mentioned earlier on, that the media reflects on the prevailing environment. And just the presentations that you have presented to us, some of the statements you can just tell that they are not really factual, and we can never put that in the media. We thank you for telling us that there are billionaires who are doing different projects in our country. The only problem with the person at the grassroots is they are not benefiting from those projects. So for us to come into the media or onto the platform and say there are these billions that are being poured in and people are saying, where is the money? It does not make sense. So we must be able to be that voice of reason that says A, B, C, D is happening, but we are not seeing the consequences of those activities. So I think we just need to be honest with ourselves to then say, how do we build our nation going forward? How do we build our media environment going forward? We cannot build it on lies. We have to build it on truth. We need to build it on honesty. We need to exercise integrity as we do things. It's not politics. When we tell people that there's billions that is happening, it's business. So if business is happening, it must also cascade to the grassroots. People on the ground must be able to say, we now have jobs because certain activities are happening in our economy. People must be able to say we have money that is circulating because business is being conducted in Zimbabwe. We thank God that we have people investing, but it will be greater if we begin to see the money going around. We cannot even, if you go into the communities, people are struggling. And when you tell them there are billions being poured out into the economy, they don't want to hear the billions. They want to see the $5 in their own pockets. Thank you very much.
All right, so there were two.
You did not see me.
Oh, okay. I missed you, but in a minute, that.
Thank you very much, Comrade Kabila. I did not see me raising my hand because I was sitting right behind you as you made that observation.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Now, a very simple question to Minister Mutsvangwa. Perhaps the question is very much belated, but I've never had the opportunity, please forgive me, to ask you this particular question. And now that I have the opportunity, or betraying myself, if I cannot put it to you. Now, let's assume, let's agree in principle that back in 2001, the Daily News supported the opposition NDC party. Let's assume that is a correct factual observation. And that there was some foreign funding in the organization that published the Daily News. Was it still necessary, Minister, for a bomb to be planted in order to destroy the newspapers' printing press? This is a few weeks after hailing an explosive in the newspapers' offices. Do you, I would most sincerely want to hear your comment on this. Was it absolutely necessary, given the kind of rosy picture that you're painting about the future of our country? One of your colleagues there was talking about the hate that he sees that is manifest in the political relationships currently prevailing in Zimbabwe. But my question is, was it necessary?
Thank you, Anyaro Tanyati, for that question. I hope you were noting, because most of the submissions were to you, Honorable Minister, but there was a submission by Blessed. I'm sure targeted reflections briefly, then we give to Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. Blessed Dara Mhlam, you should note that women are structurally and systematically marginalized. And women have to work 10 times as hard as men to gain their political space in this country. When you want to say journalists can write describing women's body shapes because they dance and they sing, that is sexist. A singing and a dancing and a body had nothing to do with their ambitions to be a councillor. We have never seen men being described their body shapes or their skin tone or anything else. And we have a right to speak out when women are being objectified. We are not going to be silenced because you want to push a certain narrative. I tried to respectfully not even speak about you when I was making my submission, because you're one of the journalists who's well known for pushing his political views whenever he interviews a person or does anything. If we had doctors who pushed their political affiliations, I think most people would be dead. And journalists should also not push their personal political views in their reporting or when they are interviewing people. But just because we do not speak about these things, it is not that we do not see that this particular journalist pushes for a certain narrative that is coming from this political party. And when we're speaking about these things, when some of us got into politics, we know what we're getting ourselves into. But I speak on behalf of other women who can understand all this. And I'm thick-skinned. I don't even care what you write about me, because I saw what was even worse when I was in trade unions. But there are plenty of young people who want to get into politics, who are afraid of getting into politics because they're afraid of being scandalized unnecessarily. When we speak about fact-checking, we are speaking about media ethics that every journalist should subscribe to. So don't say just because men are having people saying A, B, C, D, and E about them, so women should not complain when similar things are happening to them. If a woman today is called Hure, and Mutsvangwa here is called Hure, the context of a Hure wakatosiyana. Nekuti kumukadzi it's demeaning, but kumurume anogona kutobhlabha achiti ndine Hure ndine bhuru inini. Saka the contexts are different. And when we speak about issues affecting women, because all these issues are contextually different, don't try to silence and be the major misogynist in this place. As a woman who has faced all sorts of harsh and toxicity and polarity within the media space, I will respond to you on behalf of other women and say just be gender responsive and gender sensitive. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister, the reflections on the...
Well, there are two remarks. They were not questions, but they were remarks. And I can be polemical. I'm very good at... I can also be very combative. But we want to educate each other today and to see where we can. Every mother has children given a chance, and the child is named Mwana Mining. That fact identifies the genetic origin of that child. The fact that other women can bear children does not make them owner of this particular children, particularly if they've not even bothered. So to try to revise history in this country and diminish the role of a particular party in assuming the onerous task of delivering this country to be, and then try to spread it out as if it is every person's and everyone's job. It's really the height of defactualization. You are now trying to run away from history. It was not easy for Zanu PF to organize all the people to the level where we are. I know, because I got wounds, physical wounds of trying to organize the people of Zimbabwe. It was under a banner. It was not under, I had to organize each and every village to support that to support the effort at independence. That requires sacrifice, that requires leadership, that requires clarity of mind at that particular time. So it's like writing a book, there has to be copyright. I don't want your stories to be taken over by other people simply because all of you are journalists. You write a story, it's your story. So this is the story of Zanu PF, which I'm talking about. Don't try to take it away from me. It is copyright. That's what we did. And we fight for the future of Zimbabwe. We fight for the present prosperity of Zimbabwe based on our pedigree of what we have done. And the people of Zimbabwe, we don't take it for granted that they should support Zanu PF. That's why we spent so much time trying to organize them, and we are part of organization. So please, I know everybody feels jealous about what Zanu PF does, but you cannot revisit history and change it. You can't revisit and take it away that Zanu PF did discharge a certain historical responsibility, which nobody else has done, and which everybody else who is here is enjoying. That way, somebody to do it. Before 6 decades ago, before Zanu PF, we were all colonial subjects. And if Zanu PF had not done something about it, you would probably be a rural girl at Chikaira Nyimokuru. But now, girl child performing well. Yes. Let's be grateful to Zanu PF. About the economic performance. You see, if you want to have a stereotype about capital and its impact in a country, and you decide to be blind like an ostrich in the Kalahari Desert to what things which are happening on the ground, it's your prerogative. We can't help on that because it's a choice. But in the last 5 years, we have seen the economy of this country begin to transform in a big way. And when a country starts producing world-class goods from world-class capital, applying to world-class resources to a most educated population in Africa, we will soon fill department stores in Japan with made in Zimbabwe steel products. We will soon fill car battery garages in America using new energy electric vehicle batteries from Zimbabwe because of our lithium in Zimbabwe, which is all over, which is also graphite in Chinoi. That's why these companies are coming here. If you go to Manise today, there are about 2,000 young people who are being trained in steel making. Nobody here probably has ever been there, although the project has been 3 years in gestation. Nobody has ever gone there. You are all being told there's no progress being made in Zimbabwe. When we say we are trying to rebuild roads and railways to carry up to 10 million tons of steel to export markets, and you want to be blind to that, and you say upon a trickle-down effect, it means it's poor. It's either ignorance or poor journalism or biased journalism. Because the way this economy is being transformed, Africa has never seen it before. And watch it. I know what then historically, we had a land reform. We brought the biggest tobacco company in the world, China Tobacco. In China, they smoke cigarettes, 400 million of them. That's a lot of smoking. We produce the best blend tobacco in the world. The best blend, the tobacco in Virginia, to tobacco manufacturers, it's like a woman and a Louis Vuitton bag. I'm not being misogynist. Women love Louis Vuitton bags. So this company is here in Zimbabwe. 180,000 families every year share $800 million in cash. And you say, and solar panel, because they produce tobacco. Solar pumps, because this is the transformation of the people. Finally, one aspect, everybody knows this, that all Zimbabwe $100 notes, they are new in your pocket. The old ones, which are worn out, are $1 and $10 notes. Do you know the reason? $100 notes are printed in America. Now they go to Dubai, and in Dubai, a plane leaves Harare carrying gold. There's an exchange of those notes before they are even unpacked. They come to Zimbabwe. That's why they are all new. If you make a mistake, we'll not piece 9 because they are coming from the printing press. This is money which is not being given to Zimbabwe by America. We are getting US dollars on the market. I don't even understand people who say we are dollarizing. If we can own those dollars by buying them at the market, we are de-dollarizing. Because if it was dollarizing, it would be America sending that money for free to Zimbabwe for whatever reason. It doesn't happen. So we have 2 million young people digging gold, and in Zimbabwe, gold is everywhere. 6 years ago, they were legalized. They were being chased. And we war veterans said, no, stop it, because that's what made Great Zimbabwe. That's what becoming be what it is. We were trading in gold for 800 years. I'm happy to say that 2/3 of the gold, which is now adding those $100 notes, is being done by young people. We need, of course, to see the safety in what they are mining. But because all of you are told with you, Makorokoza, because it's a colonial mindset, you don't see that economic activity which is supplying most of the foreign currency which this country is earning today to be where you are today, to be a hotel like this. Those are young people underground. Nobody writes about them. But you are all being told the economy is toxic, the economy is toxic, but these young people are making money. Well, I just want to end up by saying, Tagaita Miners Conference just before the elections, where our president was called in. The number of GD6 Toyotas which was there was mind-boggling. But it never crosses your mind, Zimbabwe's economy is in shambles. It's in shambles. It's like you are an ostrich, like you are burying more living underground. You don't want to see things as they happen. If you can't see change happening, and you ask for a gift horse, I mean, it's your problem. A golden gift horse, it's your problem. This economy is transforming, and I'm ready, outside of this context, to give you blow by blow, because most of these things I've done them. I'm the one who has been attracting that capital on the scale which it is doing. And the good thing is that we have a president who is responsive to the requirements of international capital, because it's only capital which can unlock the resources of Zimbabwe to the scale which you want. And it's happening right now. But if you want to be ignorant about those things, well, I can't help it. You can take a donkey to the river, but you can't force it to drink. I think.
There was one question by Nati. Was it necessary, or is it necessary in any report?
I was going to reserve that person for my list. We are good friends. Because it's a matter of history, and I can't be here to continue to adjudicate history. What I know is that in the Second Republic, a lot is being done to provide a congenial environment to the journalist. I know sleepless days and nights when my wife was the Minister of Information, how she worked for that, and she worked in earnest. There was no ulterior motive, which I noticed on here when she was Minister of Information, to try to differentiate you or to bracket you in different categories because of who you own. So I don't know, some things are historical, we cannot always try to correct history. But the last thing which I want to add and to Mr. Chair, is that there is a movement from analog to digital in terms of information. If you continue to have your information in this format, it's like the equivalent of your child going to school and a slate Wamuani exercise book in the 1940s and 60s. Information has to be in the format which this thing can use. That's what every child, even under 2 years out under my game, 3 years from perform. So there's something about the allure of digitalization, which then is a paradigm shift on the way information is processed and sold to the public. To achieve that digitalization, you need capital on a scale which can buy base stations, which can buy data centers, which can buy the cloud, which can give satellite connectivity. You do that by attracting capital into Zimbabwe because of an advantage of pedigree global class resources. We apply those resources to the global market and produce made in Zimbabwe goods for the global market. We carve out a role like Singapore or Hong Kong. Then we have the money to support the digitalization of this country. Then you have the prosperity which you journalists deserve, because you will be now writing to a much bigger inclusive audience from the dividend of digitalization. So don't disparage big capital coming into their country, because it gives us the capacity to scale, scope, and scale, and to make you prosperous in your profession. I think.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Why is it that the security guys also refuse us to use the new technology? They phone, like, say you cannot use it to record.
Look, my press conferences and proof, I try to have everybody come. I've never tried to kick you out and you acknowledge it. I also don't know your PR relations with the people who deny you to go to that place. So I don't want to condemn them before I know the circumstances at which you are being excluded. Maybe they think that you don't fairly report on what they are saying, or it's hackening stories afterwards. I don't know. So maybe it takes two to tango. I have to find out specific circumstances as to who's been who has been denied.
Yes, I was denied.
So can you write to me?
Coverage at VOA wrote the letter to.
VOA.
Yes, Voice of America wrote a letter to Farai, and he acknowledged receiving the application letter. Imagine I had to travel to Gweru, and getting to Gweru, I went to the district office. They said there is no letter for your parents to cover the land. But I followed the process.
You know, I think we can always talk about that. Maybe you may, as a genuine Zimbabwean journalist, and sport journalist, have a good cause to complain at your treatment. But if I also see from the perspective of who you are on, VOA is a state broadcaster of the American government to further America's foreign policies. It does not even broadcast to the domestic American audience. It is there to support American foreign policy. And the Zimbabweans who are there, they are on that ticket. So, you know, if somebody then who is in a weaker position to the resources of America and VOA feels that the only way they can safeguard themselves from egregious attacks by the VOA, which has never been gracious to Zimbabwe, especially with Zanu, then it's a peculiar aspect concerning that particular broadcast. But by and large, if there are other reporters from elsewhere, from respected autonomously run journalists, I would be happy to answer that. I will fight for your cause. But there's a difference. VOA is the State Department of the American government. You understand? It's the State Department of the American government. Just like BBC, the budget of BBC is run from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Britain. And we have historical issues to grind with them. They don't want to see the prospect of a prosperous Zimbabwe which is not under their control. They don't want. That's why they also choose certain political parties in Zimbabwe, although they choose them to support them, but they never tell them how to set up and organize their parties. They only tell them how to be subversive. So you see, these are the issues of a geopolitical nature. You know, maybe some of the money to the political parties could be to teach them the politics of organization and structure of parties, starting from lesson 101. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think it is prudent. We are way past this session, and unfortunately, I'm not in a position to take any more intervention. Let us break for tea. When we come back, I'll be handing over to my co-facilitator Zaza to take forward. The other engagements and interventions will come, keep them, and Honorable Minister will join us for tea, and we really grab our issues. Thank you very much, and let's give this panel a round of applause. All right, let's go for tea, ladies and gentlemen. And we have a working one, 15 minutes.
All right, thank you guys for tuning in. We were just having a conversation with political parties represented, giving their reaction to the research document presented by the Voluntary Media Council of Zimbabwe. So we had Honorable Minister Christopher Mutsvangwa. We also have from Zanu, we also had Stephen Chuma coming through from the CCC, and we had President Linda Masarira coming through from the lead, and also we had Chengeta Guta coming through from the MDC. So we're going to give you coverage on the media ethics in Daba happening right here at the Holiday Inn in Harare. Thank you for tuning in. We'll take a short break right now. Bye-bye for now.